Good evening, one. Thank you for coming to tonight's Fairfax Town Council Candidate Forum. My name is Connie Siegenthaler. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Marin County, coordinator of this forum. Tonight's event is being moderated by the Marin County League of Women Voters. In 2020, the League of Women Voters will celebrate 100 years of following a mission to empower voters and defend democracy. Hosting and moderating candidate forums is an important part of our vision of a democracy where every citizen has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. The League is a strictly nonpartisan organization, never supports or opposes individual candidates or political parties. Before we get started, I ask you to please turn off all electronic devices. Unauthorized videos are not allowed because the FCC requires that a forum must not be edited and must be broadcast in its entirety, either live or reasonably soon after it takes place. The League wants to ensure that information is not manipulated to create false or misleading impressions. No candidate shall be allowed to use or edit the footage for campaign purposes. Just a few housekeeping. The bathrooms are out in the lobby. And just to remind people that there is no smoking within 10 feet of town buildings. We encourage our audience to submit questions on the index cards that you find on your seat. Someone will be along to collect them during the course of the evening, and please raise your hand if you would like another card. And now I will turn you over to the moderator for the evening, Lori Nardone.
Great, thank you, Connie. Hello and welcome to the Candidate Forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Marin County. I'm Lori Nardone of the League of Women Voters of Marin County, and I'll be your moderator. And with me as League members are Annie Laser as our timekeeper and Nancy Bell as our question sorter. There are 3 candidates running for 2 seats on the Fairfax Town Council. All of the candidates are with us tonight, and they are Renee Goddard, Stephanie Hellman, and Cindy Swift. Before we get started, I have a few ground rules for you. Because we are a strictly nonpartisan organization and following Federal Election Commission rules for candidate forums, no campaign materials like buttons or signs or brochures or t-shirts are allowed in the auditorium. However, campaign brochures may, with permission, be placed on a table in the entryway after the forum has concluded. Most importantly, this is a big crowd. Clearly you have ideas. We expect candidates and audience members to remain civil and courteous throughout. What we are requesting is that the audience will not make or yell comments or applaud individual candidates' answers. Let us use this evening as an opportunity to respectfully listen to and learn from all 3 of our candidates. Please note that CMCM, the Community Media Center of Marin, is broadcasting tonight's forum live on Comcast Channel 26. And a gavel-to-gavel production will be rebroadcast on CMCM as well as on the League's website at marinlwv.org. Audience release notices are posted around the room, advising that your presence as a member of the audience during the filming constitutes your permission for the League of Women Voters of Marin County to use your likeness on the air in any forum and as often as they deem appropriate and desirable for promotional or broadcast purposes. And now we'll begin the forum. So each candidate has been invited to make a 2-minute opening statement, and then after that, the candidates will each have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. And to be fair, we will rotate the order in which they respond to the questions. So for our opening statements, we'll begin with Renee Goddard and go down the row in the order in which they are seated.
Good evening, everyone, and I want to thank you all for coming. My name is Renee Goddard, or as I'm currently known, I seem to be the lady with the yellow signs and no last name. I've spent the majority of my time over the last 16 years in service to this community and the climate of Fairfax. and 6.5 of them as a town council member, and I was your mayor in 2016. I believe strongly that experience and knowing a community and its culture and its creatives is critical in local governance. With a master's degree in drama therapy from New York University, combined with 15 years of international whitewater river guiding, and as a bilingual caseworker with Russian refugees, I think I have a rare and unique skill set of listening, and active listening and survival in the face of adversity. These are the skills I've used every single day as a town council member, and even across the most inflamed and passionate divides. I've successfully worked with local organizations to create what I believe are the most effective policies. I worked closely with the 5G Free Marin Coalition to establish Marin's most protective ordinance to maintain local control over big telecom. I learned heaps from the Marin Organizing Committee about senior housing issues and about housing inequity, which led to a very solid vote and approval for Victory Village. I understand the critical need to make meetings inclusive and language understandable to all and find a way to create more opportunities for dialogue. I've modeled and will continue my commitment to civil engagement and to hold fast to my belief that this progressive community makes much better decisions together. Thank you.
Stephanie?
Good evening. I'm honored to be here sharing the stage with these two fellow hardworking and thoughtful women. My name is Stephanie Hellman, and I've lived in Fairfax for 16 years with my husband, Ted. We are currently raising our 3 children who all attend public schools in the Ross Valley. I'm running for town council to bring a fresh perspective to the challenges we face. When I talk to voters, like me, they're concerned that Fairfax is changing too much and not always for the better. My highest priority is protecting our natural surroundings and open spaces we all cherish. We absolutely need more affordable housing in Fairfax, and I have proposals to achieve. But the developments proposed for our hillsides are massive, unaffordable houses, and that's not how we're going to keep Fairfax livable. We need to do far more better preparing for our community for fire evacuation. The fresh perspective I am offering also means rebuilding trust through clear and transparent communication in advance of all public meetings. It also means treating each other with dignity and respect, which in turn will invite more civic engagement, including our youth. And on the topic of youth, I've proposed reestablishing the Fairfax Youth Council, whereby youth ages 12 to 18 are consulted on the effects of ordinances and programs that directly affect them. We are seeing the power of the voice of our youth around the world. Let's give our own local youth a seat at the table. I have a 22-year background in marketing in the private sector. I know how to navigate challenging problems in a highly regulated environment. I have experience overseeing a $14 million budget. I can listen, negotiate, and collaborate. I know how to cut the fat out of long meetings and reach consensus. I have many ideas to share with you this evening from all across this lovely town. Walking door to door and listening to residents, what I've heard loud and clear is that our community is ready for a change. I look forward to our discussion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Cindy?
Hi, a little bit about me. I was raised in San Francisco and moved to Fairfax in the late 70s. I'm a retired IT program and project manager for the Corps of Engineers, where I manage Corps-wide IT programs. One of the great things about moving to a small town is there are many opportunities to get involved, and I like parades. When I moved to Fairfax and saw my first Fairfax Festival parade, I thought it could be a little bit better. And before I knew it, I was chairing the parade the following year. I've spent time on the Fairfax Park and Rec Commission and the Volunteer Board. I'm currently serving as the chair of the Planning Commission. I was appointed in late 2016. I'm a member of the Cascade Canyon Firewise Steering Committee, and Cascade Canyon was the first Firewise neighborhood in town. I'm also the Fairfax Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT for short, coordinator, and I serve on the County Steering Committee and the Fairfax Citizens Disaster Council. I support our local libraries. I'm on the board of the Friends of the Fairfax Library and the County Library, where I successfully co-chaired a 2014 funding measure for the county library system that resulted in the Fairfax Library being open on Fridays. And our library is truly a community treasure. Some of my priorities include improving our town and community disaster planning and preparedness, preservation of our historical and cultural resources, starting with an inventory of our downtown buildings for possible historical preservation status, supporting our local community serving businesses, maintaining our infrastructure, and preserving our open space. And as I walk through the town, these are the priorities that I also hear from the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will start with Stephanie with our first question, and this comes from our audience. What will you do to protect our open space and general plan in light of the new housing accountability laws that aim to erode local authority while pushing development?
That was sort of a mouthful. Could you repeat the question, please? Protecting open space and what now?
Do you want it back?
In light of,
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you need me to repeat it? I'm sorry.
yeah.
Okay, what will you do to protect our open space and general plan in light of the new housing accountability laws that aim to erode local authority while pushing development? And it kind of tied into keeping the wall property free from any developments. I think those two are tied together.
So the open space issue is why I got involved in the town council meetings, why I started attending the town council meetings. It's something very near and dear to my heart, and the wall property is something that I'm very, very concerned about, and as is, I would say, most of this community. As I've been walking door to door for the past 6 weeks, when I share my story with residents and explain to them how I started getting involved with the town council, and I point up to the Miranda Oaks neighborhood and I say, you know, I'm very concerned about open space and how there's a lack of transparency in the wall property, and most people nod their heads and say, yeah, what's going on with that? I see the signs, and what I would like to see with town council and planning commission meetings is more transparency and more detailed agendas, because this community cares deeply about open space. Now, as far as local authority, I just read an article today. I think Gavin Newsom is about to sign something that will help us ease regulations with ADU, and I think there's some really exciting things. I'm going to refer to my notes. There's some nonprofit CDFI, community development financial institutions out there offering pilots for homeowners looking to build ADUs. So we could possibly.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
We're gonna
anyway, there's creative solutions out there that I think we could look at.
Sorry, a minute and a half goes by like that.
Yeah.
So sorry. Cindy, do you want to tackle that?
So when I started precinct walking, I specifically started in the neighborhoods surrounding the Marinda Heights project because I knew of the concerns there and wanted to talk to residents and make sure that residents were signed up for notifications. The website, the town's website, has all of the material related to Marinda Heights on their website, and I think that's new over the last 3 years, kind of the process of transparency. I also wanted to let them know the status of the project, which is there's an EIR that the contract for that will come before the town council, and after that's approved, the planning commission will hold a public scoping meeting with the EIR firm to start that process over, because the Planning Commission wants to hear from the community. As far as housing, I support infill housing, and there's a lot we've seen with ADUs that are helping the community and helping property owners stay in the community.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Yes, thanks for the question. So there are 13 housing bills before Gavin Newsom at this point this year. 2 draconian bills from last year that were put on a 2-year hold. This year's housing bills make more sense. But what makes the most sense is looking at how we're going to achieve our own housing needs right here in our community and looking at where those needs are. What we did in approving and now the construction of Victory Village is take care of 53 100% affordable senior housing units, which meets all of our RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment allocations. We have met the RHNA for low and low income housing. It means the state doesn't have any grip on us. So regardless, we can now make use of state law that actually helps us and incentivizes and actually can help with funding for things that can house people. We can use what we have in the built environment. We have great opportunities and amazing creativity in this community, and I believe we are going to meet the needs of our very precariously housed people in Fairfax, and we'll work on it as much as possible to achieve it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy, we'll start with you for this question. If you support Fairfax's small town status, what steps will you take to assure that it will endure? And if you could tie that into what can be done to improve citizens' confidence in Fairfax town government.
Well, that's 2 different things right there.
I don't know. I kind of think they're tied, but maybe not. You can break it into 2.
So as far as, I think, keeping Fairfax small, I think that's the first part of that. I think we're blessed to have a business community that supports our local community, and I think we need to continue to support that business community and reach out to them when things come before the council so that we have buy-in from the business community and we do that outreach. What was the
So the second half was what can be done to improve citizens' confidence in Fairfax's town government.
One of the things that I asked the town council during the last meeting during open time was that we communicate and publicize our meetings, both our planning commission and our council meetings, by having more signage in the downtown. I asked for signs in the park at the Fairfax sign and both ends of the parkade so people are aware of that visual cue that we have meetings, and just reaching out more to the community and make sure that they have all the tools they need to be informed about what's going on and participate in our government.
Thank you. Did you need me to repeat the question, Renee?
I think I got it.
Okay.
Keeping Fairfax small, I would say that the people and the passions in Fairfax are extremely large. What's going to keep Fairfax small is doing what we can to bring people back together, to create an actual small town environment where people can look each other in the eye and engage across disagreements, which exist in this room today, and figure out how we're going to get back to being the family that we claim we are, and the culture and the creativity that makes people want to stay in Fairfax. Knowing our businesses, that's what I do. I spend my time in this town, my money in this town, and my commitment to the people of this town. Transparency. We've made great strides in transparency. We've redesigned our website. It is up. It is ever evolving. You can search it easily, and we are open to any input or ideas about how to make it better. We now have a monthly newsletter. It goes out like clockwork. It's being worked on by very few staff who are multitasking in their positions, but I think they're doing an excellent job. And as I said, we need more community conversation. I am open and excited for community conversation. I'm really not afraid anymore. So please, let's get together and do what we can to make things better. It's our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Hi. So with regard to small town status, so if you've seen any of my flyers or my website, it's about keeping Fairfax livable. I see Fairfax as one of the last vestiges of old Marin County. I grew up here. I love Fairfax. I see its character starting to change. And one of the drivers of that, I think, is because of the zoning changes that have happened with housing. So one of the deliverables that the Town Council and the Planning Commission, I think, are proud of is that they've changed the housing from 5,000 square foot homes to 35 square foot homes. That's still a really large home with a 500 square foot garage and a 1,200 square foot ADU. That's a mansion, in my opinion. And what kind of people are we attracting? Very, very wealthy people. It's not affordable. That's not a small town character. I want Fairfax to be a place where teachers can live, where our police officer and our firemen can live here, artists can thrive here. I want it to be a vibrant community. To me, that's a small town, vibrant community that we support. I don't want it to become just a place where wealthy people can thrive.
Thank you. Okay, I think our next question actually falls on the heels of that, and we start with Renee for this one. So, what are your suggestions to provide better opportunities for the youth, and with housing and with spaces that they can go to? What are your plans for supporting the youth in this town so they actually stick around?
So I think the most important thing is to ask the youth if they want to stick around. No, I'm just kidding. Because yes, they should have every opportunity if they do choose to want to stay here. So it's been a big struggle for me because I came in here totally gung-ho 6.5 years ago, and I was going to do all kinds of great stuff for youth. So immediately got some funding allocated, and we hired Roots to Branches, a wonderful organization, and we reached out to tweens and teens, and we set up a program, and it had a community service element. Anyway, kids didn't want to use it, and it was pretty cool. So we need to reboot and absolutely re-up our work there. I work hard with teenage youth interns. I'm mentor and teach climate activist youth. And have provided them a stage everywhere that they are willing to step out. I am really there to support them having their voices heard. So I've gotten that far. I know we can use the pavilion. I know we can do movie nights. I know that they want to play dodgeball. They don't want to be chaperoned. I learned that. We have space. We have music galore. We have young musicians wanting to play at Streets for People. There's no room for them. So I really feel like I can even say that I would commit to making sure that we get some funding going to make something happen for our young people. There's way too many kids hiding out there smoking pot. It's just too much. So it's on me, and I want to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay, watch me go. I'm overflowing with ideas on this topic. I have 3 kids, so I'm very passionate on this topic. But as I walk around town, people are coming to me with ideas. I'm meeting with a neighbor in this neighborhood, actually, on Spruce Wednesday with his 12-year-old who wants to build a skate park, and there's 3 or 4 of them are coming to this meeting. The skate park keeps coming up, and so if anyone wants to join, let me know. So the Youth Commission I mentioned in my opening, this is a leadership opportunity. the youth voice, Greta, I think we know this is something, they deserve a seat at the table. I believe this is a wonderful leadership opportunity, like I mentioned. I manage a social impact leadership group for my 13-year-old daughter and her friends. It's amazing what they do. I basically set them up, and they're on their way already with doing amazing things with microfinance and so forth. So we have these amazing festivals and events, and the opportunities for 5- and 6-year-olds to jump on jumpies and so forth is great, but you age out. And I think there's actually revenue opportunity that we're leaving on the table. We should have climbing walls, we should have, we should do all sorts of things for adolescents, because there's nothing for them to do. So after the parade, these adolescents kind of mill around, and there's nothing for them to do. And if they're not into going to the music or shop around, it puts them at risk, honestly, for doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing. So
I'm going to have to stop you.
yeah,
Sorry.
I have lots of ideas, and please come to me if you have ideas too. Thank you.
Cindy?
So I know our Parks and Recreation has classes for kids. The library has a lot of programs for kids, including book clubs and maker programs and things like that. I think there's a certain age group that's traditionally been hard to reach, and part of that could be, like some have said, that they want to be on their own, they don't want to be supervised. It's just a hard to reach group. I know when I first moved here, we had dances at the pavilion. We don't have those anymore, so I would be delighted to look at more ways that we could bring kids in to do things like that.
Thank you. Okay, so for our next one, we will start with Stephanie on this. They say that Fairfax is age-friendly. We just talked about the youth. So now, how about for the residents that are over 60 years of age? What specific actions would you put in place to ensure that the needs of older adults in your city are addressed? And I know
Great
60 is middle
question.
age, not old.
Great question, because it's a concern of mine as well. So 2 things. One, I think the programs in place for, what's the appropriate way to refer to this segment? I don't want to offend anyone. Older adults. Thank you. The older adults are minimal. I think we have classes that people are pleased with, but I would love to build out those programs. And I've heard this from residents as I've been walking the neighborhoods. In addition, I've heard that we need to do a better job in supporting the sidewalks. And I've heard this over and over too, that they're really problematic, the town-owned sidewalks. And so I would really like to take a look at that. I think it poses a risk. Obviously, whether you're in a wheelchair or not, we need to do the right thing for this age segment. So those are 2 things that I would like to look at for this audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy?
So we have age-friendly Fairfax in Fairfax, and we're lucky to have Jody Timms leading that, and she's our representative to the county's Commission on Aging. Age-friendly brings members of the community together for social events. There's educational programs. There's things at Bennett House, as well as the library has Fridays that they have age-friendly events there. We also have, supported by the Friends of the Fairfax Library, that we do chair yoga for seniors. So we're lucky to have a variety of opportunities for our seniors. We do things at Bennett House as well. When Victory Village comes along, that'll be another opportunity with those 53 units of seniors there. As with anything, you can always do more, but I think we're lucky to have the leadership in that area that we have and to be doing the things we're doing for our seniors.
Thank you, Renee.
So we have the only town that provides free services for our seniors in our Fairfax Recreation Department. So we actually have a lot of seniors that flood in from elsewhere, but we have these robust programs that people want to go to, and there's a lot of spirit in our older adult community. What I see missing is a multi-generational approach, and there's been talk, and Jody's brought up multiple times, that we need a program where we bring youth, maybe young folks from Drake, to come over and help seniors with clearing defensible space and doing some of the things that many of the folks that are way up in the hills cannot do on their own. So the opportunities for that are vast. I believe that integrating the generations is what's going to actually allow for the wisdom of the ages to come and to fill the young folks and remind them of what's important. And the folks that are especially living in the hills, perhaps wanting to come down off the hills, really need the infusion. As I've walked, I've talked to a few people who were very, very happy to have some energy in their lives up there. I have great concerns for folks that are actually living in the hills alone and are compromised with mobility, which many are. So I think there's great opportunity, and that's a great way to get our young people contributing and feeling fulfilled. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, let's talk about marijuana. Who didn't inhale? Just kidding. Okay, so what are your ideas around the cultivation of and the selling of recreational marijuana in Fairfax? And while the legalization of recreational marijuana was approved, there wasn't really a vote about setting up retail shops. So what are your thoughts on retail locations? Should you put it to a vote, or it's all kind of ties together? And so the first one who gets that question is Cindy.
Lucky me.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think Fairfax could have a responsible recreational retail storefront. Since the vast majority of medical cannabis products are available in the adult use retail environment, I see medical dispensaries losing their viability. I was concerned that we have a lot of older adults who look to something other than prescription drugs at times for release of pain, and they wouldn't have any place to go to walk in our community to get good information to help them make decisions on products. I don't like the fact that they would have had to, leave the county or go online without that knowledge. The Planning Commission spent many meetings, as did the council, on this issue with a lot of community input. And the commission addressed things such as number of locations, parking, store size, traffic studies. Much of this was incorporated in the ultimate ordinance that the council put together. And I know there's been discussion about the state vote. And that I went back and looked at, in the end of 2017, the town had a small online survey that supported a retail store in town.
Thank you. Renee?
Well, I sat kind of right here through about 23 meetings. We're now famous for our 23 meetings all over the county. They say, don't make us do 23 meetings. I think they were, each and every one, vital and very important to coming up with a decision that I think serves the best interests of everyone in the town, considering that we all have different best interests. We did vote We now have established that we will have two medicinal storefronts, both with the opportunity to deliver adult use recreational. We've established buffer zones around those that I think required quite a compromise and that the council worked hard to come to a compromise about. I feel as though we made these decisions very thoughtfully. My reasons for really wanting to slow this down are because this is a high-powered, big money industry. It's fast-moving. The opportunities are vast, and people are coming in fast to use the places and places where it will be allowed. It's slow, understaffed state regulators and testing facilities, and we would be the only town that would have opened their doors to recreational storefront. Other towns are talking about it. I know where the future of this is going, but my vote was to go slow, but allow, and make sure everyone has access, local access to what it is that they are looking for when they are wanting to purchase cannabis. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Hi, yes. Not too divergent from Renee's, actually. So I understand the cultural history of cannabis use, and I support everyone's right to recreational cannabis use. It is legal per Prop 64. I would like to rebut the statement by Cindy in that there was no study that was statistically valid, and nor was there a traffic study done. So I think that's important to note. And I would agree with Renee in that this industry is very fast moving, and it is backed by large industry corporations like Monsanto and Philip Morris. So I think that needs to be noted as well. And they have clever marketing schemes to hook our kids. And that's been demonstrated. So I have concerns about that. So after 23 meetings with the community, I am okay where we landed, and that is with 2 dispensaries in our town. Everyone that I know has absolutely no difficulty getting access to marijuana products. So I think we're okay where we are. I think we can revisit it in the months, years ahead, and I'll leave it at that.
Let me turn that on. Okay, I think our next question is going to focus on fire danger. It's kind of on everyone's mind, and our first person to answer is Renee. What do you see? What can the town help provide, or what areas do you see to support people being safer in their homes and safer from potential fire damage?
Well, first of all, I'm exceedingly proud to be part of a town that is near to certifying 9 FireWise communities. Cindy and I are founding members and on the steering committee of Cascade FireWise, and we both helped co-coordinate the very first evacuation drill in Fairfax that took people out of the Cascades to Drake High School with the help of the rest of an amazing steering committee. Hi, Ray. And I would say that getting people on board and educated and the assistance they need to deal with clearing their defensible space, to preparing for evacuation, and for getting acquainted with where it is they evacuate to. The Disaster Council, run by Mayor Kohler, is coming out with some neighborhood evacuation maps. Those maps are going to clearly indicate where we must go, which is to our main arterials, but they also show some trails that are clear enough that they might be viable evacuation routes. So it's about everyone getting involved. Join your FireWise neighborhood, know your neighbors, pack your to-go bag, which I need to do tonight, and be ready and listen to the alerts. Actually, Alert Marin, right now I think everyone should just interrupt this meeting and go on and sign up for Alert Marin, and keep your eye on the professionals who are out there doing due diligence to keep us safe and teach us how to protect our homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Yes, I think there's been a tremendous amount of community work, and my hat's off to the Firewise organization. I recently went to a meeting here. Todd Lando gave it, and it was extraordinary. So I think as many people in our community, in our local community here in Fairfax and surrounding communities need to go to this presentation. It is so informative. I felt so empowered and better after I went to this presentation. So whatever we can do to get everybody to go to the Firewise presentation, number one. So that's top notch in terms of preparation, but we need to be going way above and beyond in terms of evacuation preparedness. So that's great that the maps are being prepared, but if and when the fire strikes, we need to have the evacuation routes actually marked. So if it's dark and it's smoky and it's late at night, we need them marked and lit up. If our families are not together, we need to make sure the kids know where to go. It's interesting, there's a law in Cuba that requires neighborhoods to organize and for hurricanes, and since implementation, there have had minimal fatalities for hurricanes since they've organized around this. So I think if we get really serious about it, and I'm not necessarily proposing a law, but I think we just really need to get serious about this and go above and beyond what Firewise is doing. Thank you.
So there's a lot in this area. One of the things, it's not just fire, but it's bringing the community together, both our businesses and our schools. We have PG&E power shutdowns that we have to be concerned with. Right now, I'm not sure which of our businesses would be up and running during those times to support the community, or what our schools' risks are, or how they can support us in a disaster. So I want to bring all members of the community together so we can understand everybody's risk and work better as a community. We also need to continue the meeting that Stephanie went to, was a Living with Fire presentation put on by Fire Safe Marin. It's great. We need to make sure that our community members are prepared. When I'm walking, during my precinct walking, I'm taking the advantage of the red flag days and asking members if they're signed up for Alert Marin or they're signed up for Nixle. And I'm giving the information. There's still people that aren't. And I'm giving the information to do that. We need to clear our public right-of-ways so we have more egress and ingress. Firewise communities are working with Fire Safe Marin on grants to do just that. So it's making the community as a whole safer, as well as preparing our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Stephanie for the next one. So a lot of questions around this too, not just focused on teachers, but I'm going to lead with teachers. They're one of the groups that say that the high cost of living in Marin and lack of affordable housing means that many of them have to work multiple jobs and they have to commute anywhere from 15 to 90 miles round trip. So how, or sometimes even, move in with relatives. So how are you meeting, or how would you meet those needs? What ideas do you have in the ways of affordable housing and letting our communities live here, who work here?
Yeah, so I think we absolutely have a housing crisis, and I touched on this earlier, and I'm very sympathetic to the teachers who are absolutely so underpaid and so foundational to our society. So we're at capacity in Fairfax, and I said a couple of creative solutions with regard to ADUs. I'd like to get a grant. We have ADUs that are in existence that are not up to code, and whether they're being occupied or not, I'd like to get those up to code. And so that's one idea I have. Then the CDFI is another. There's nonprofits out there that we can explore doing a town pilot. And that's another opportunity I'd like to explore for Fairfax as well. So we can ask the property owners, or require rather property owners to, for these rentals to be affordable for our teachers and for our artists and everybody else who's in the service industry, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy?
So I think ADUs are a great way to do infill housing. A project that came before us on the Planning Commission was a house on Willow where a young family had bought an old 750 square foot home. They took that, they came in with a remodel that provided them a 2,000 square foot home for their family, but it also created a 550 square foot ADU that allowed them to house another family, more rental units, and also help them to afford living in Fairfax. So those are great opportunities. A lot of them can be small. We can look at inclusionary housing requirements for town where we require a certain amount of housing to be low income. We've done rent control measures. The council has done that in the spring. And last, as far as second units, the council has had amnesty programs to help second units come into compliance. So those are 4 items.
Thank you. Renee?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about needing to add more housing, and we do need to do that, but we also need to protect the housing we have now and protect our renters, because a lot of teachers and a lot of our service workers who we're talking about, and especially people like the folks that service our wheatgrass juice down at the Good Earth, they cannot afford to live here, and their rents are increasing. So this past year, over the past 2 years, we've passed 3 tenant protection ordinances to require mandatory mediation should a rent be increased more than 5%. Just cause eviction, so there must be a just and real cause for a person to be evicted, and to protect people with from being discriminated against because of their source of income, meaning Section 8 or veterans benefits. So renter protections is vital. There are also lots of ways that we can add. Obviously, we're all talking about ADUs. State laws are coming, and they are going to be very strong-handed, and they will take some of our local control away. But we are going to have to allow for that to happen, to add them. But we also have opportunities for tiny houses. It's been on the council goals for the last several years. We need to build closer to transit so that we can actually deal with what would happen should we have more people living here, which is that people would need to drive less. We have to talk about affordable by design. We have to talk about if you have a 300, 400, 500 square foot cottage in one of the areas that could be zoned for it, we have to allow it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Cindy for this one. How does your volunteer experience lend itself to being a town council member, and what town committees have you actually participated in to prepare for this or to participate in this role?
So as far as town committees, I've been on the Park and Recreation Committee, the volunteer board. As I'm walking town and I'm looking at some of our bridges in town, there's a plaque on them that says that they were not remodeled, but they were fixed up in 1988 to 1990 by the volunteer board. That was when I was on the board. I've been on, as I mentioned, the Planning Commission. I think all of those, and my Fairfax Festival Parade, I think all of that experience requires collaboration, working with others towards a common goal, and I think those help give me the skills along with my work experience to be a council member.
Thank you. Renee?
Yeah, so volunteering, I started as an assistant coach with West Marin Little League, where I was terrified throwing underhand pitches to my 5-year-old. And from there, really a lot of my volunteer experiences in the schools, and I got involved with Safe Routes to Schools. So for the last 16 years, I've been teaching and assisting and guiding and incentivizing and encouraging young people to ride their bikes to school, to walk. Along with that comes, of course, starting to learn a lot about infrastructure and where it's lacking, and what we can do to improve it in order to make it safer. So that was all in a volunteer capacity. I then joined Sustainable Fairfax 14 years ago, and I think my life has become pretty much a dedicated volunteer life. So I've worked as the waste management coordinator for the Fairfax Festival for a very long time, and the numbers and the diversion of our precious resources are no longer just trash. I'm someone who has been around and available in the community for all of the years that I can remember living here. So my other volunteer experience is as a Fairfax Town Council member.
Thank you. Stephanie?
So I have several years with volunteer service, and I will describe them for you in detail. Right now, I'm serving on the Leadership Council for Rise Up, and I lead a partnership committee for that organization. It's a gender equity organization. I've developed concepts for programs and delivered on these programs called Hope for Water, which is a water scarcity community education program. I traveled to India with this program and went on a sabbatical funded by Wells Fargo with this program. I also developed a concept for a program called Social Impact Leadership Club, which is a middle school program I lead. I went to Dominican Republic with my family, and we built homes for the homeless. We also, my whole family works with the Children for Change organization, which we love dearly, and we went to Tanzania and built a school for kids there. But I think my 22-year background in marketing and product management in blue chip organizations really are what makes me qualified for this role. I've led extremely complex projects. I've led teams. I stood up a diversity and inclusion council. I have a lot of skills that are applicable to this role, and I would be my honor to do so. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we'll start our next question with Renee. So, your turn. Fairfax passed a climate emergency proclamation for zero emissions by 2030. How would you ensure that we meet that goal?
I'm sorry, could you, I didn't hear the question. A climate
Did I say
impact?
Stephanie? I meant
know,
Renee.
but I didn't hear the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so Fairfax, but you are the first one to answer it. Fairfax passed a climate emergency proclamation for zero emissions by 2030. How would you ensure that you meet that goal here in Fairfax?
So it is a very ambitious goal, and it's one that we actually have an obligation to meet. So it's going to take a little bit from all of us. I'm very much a grassroots environmental activist, meaning I like to inspire people to make the change in their own lives, which will contribute to this ultimate goal. But on a larger level, we can look to our legacy in Fairfax. We were one of the first to adopt the Marin Clean Energy Deep Green program on the municipal level. One of the founders of Sustainable Fairfax was a strong advocate and one of the people that actually dealt with moving that process through and accomplishing our first community choice aggregate in Marin County, or actually one of the first anywhere. So the Climate Action Committee is working hard and has a plan toward that goal. So energy self-sufficiency, we have reinstalled the solar panels on top of the pavilion. We need to create a microgrid in Fairfax, and we have members of that commission, the Climate Action Commission, that actually have the skills to do that. Some of it involves incentivizing people that actually would allow for money to come back into the community for people to make personal improvements. We also champion Resilient Neighborhoods, which is a group in the county that brings neighbors together and finds a way to support people taking and making those changes in their lives.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Well, this actually excites me. This kind of opportunity or challenge, however you want to see it, is something that would gets me going into action, because I would pull in lots of different people from cross-functional areas first for an action plan of how we're going to get there. But I think the biggest thing you need to do is how I could add a lot of value is from a cross-channel perspective, and relying on marketing communications, which I think we have a lot of opportunity to do with the town council communications. You need to do a better job with social media. You need to do a better job with getting our communications out to the public. So it's not just printed, posted out here, it's emails, it's social, and you need to do it regularly, because people are busy. You know, they're not necessarily paying attention to what's going on, and we need to be in front of them regularly. And if there's a compliance date 2030, they need to get there, and you need time to make these whatever investments they're going to have to make. It's a big deal. So this is the kind of thing that I have experience doing. Thank you.
Cindy?
So, Marin Clean Energy, as Renee said, we were leaders in that area, and getting members of the community be 100% on that. And I think we need to continue to promote that. The resilient neighborhoods, it's another way to bring neighbors together to work as a community. But I also think we need to do a lot more education of the public on what the goals are to be reached by 2013, because that's not out there right now, and it is a big educational piece that needs to be done.
Thank you. Okay, Stephanie, once in office, or for those of you that might be returning to stay in office, what do you see as your biggest challenge in your position, and also for you personally in this position? So your challenge as a town council member, and then for you personally holding this position. Like, I would lack patience, but anyway.
I see challenges as opportunities. I've been learning and growing for the past 6 weeks, just reading a ton. There's so much to learn. And what I want to do if I get elected, is develop relationships with the town council. That's my primary opportunity. I really want to build trust with the fellow members of the town council and staff. That's objective number one. I will be reading about every ordinance. I've already been doing that. Every code, every ordinance there ever was. And it's just really building relationships. That's one of my top priorities, is reviving community trust, because I think there's a gap there right now. So that's a big priority for me. Thank you.
Cindy?
Challenges for me, as Stephanie said, there's a knowledge ramp up. So I'm familiar with parts of the code, but not the entire town code. Getting more in depth on the budget of the town. Wanting to have community meetings or reach out to members of the community and talk to them. I also want to go out and meet every business owner in town and introduce myself to them so I can start that good relationship with our local businesses.
Thank you. Renee?
I'm sorry, was the question just about challenges?
It was about challenges in your role as a town council member, and then maybe some personal challenges that you need to work on, that you're too organized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that the biggest challenge for me over all of the years that I've served is trying to understand how to represent a community as passionate, participatory, and informed as this community in the age of social media. So when you look at your computer screen and something is put up there and it's not what you really said, you can't do anything about it. And so the lack of engagement that we have when we reach impasses in this community is something that has been incredibly challenging for me. It's something that I think about all the time and that I really would put serious energy into trying to shift. I'm challenged with that, and I try very much to stay grounded and listen and try to understand and learn the myriad of things that we need to know, and also to instill in this community that we have a staff that if we don't begin with trust for the good work that they are doing, we will get nowhere. So reinstilling trust is something that is vital to me and has been a challenge all the way through.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 more questions here. And for this next to the last one, we're going to start with Cindy. A lot of notes here about the town council meetings. So apparently they're a little long and they run a little late. And so the question is, have you given some thought to making, and this is a committed group, so have you given thought to how you can make the meetings more accessible to your constituents?
I've heard the rumor that they are a little long at times. I know there's been discussion of 2 meetings a month. We do that on the Planning Commission when we have projects. We did that for 5G, small cell. We did it for cannabis, Victory Village. We're going to be going into the new year, and the Planning Commission's going to be doing the same thing for the Marinda Heights effort. I don't know that at this point whether 2 normal meetings a month would work for the council, because the piece of information I'm lacking on that is any potential impact on our staff that's small and doing multiple jobs, and I would want to hear their input on that before I went somewhere with trying to look at 2 regular meetings a month for the council. I would look at starting our meetings maybe a half hour earlier, assuming people can get home from work to go to them. And I would promise not to be as wordy on the council when making my comments and trying to do my part to keep the meeting short.
Thank you. Renee?
So I heard someone, it was social media somewhere, that said, a great suggestion actually. So if you did choose to do 2 council meetings a month, you could do sort of the light work at one and then save the hot topic ones for another meeting. What what I realized and what I've been told over the years, because this has been explored over many, many years by many different council members, some probably in the room, is that no matter what you do in Fairfax, the meeting's going to go on till 11 at the earliest. We finished at 10:30 the other night. It was like a celebration. So Fairfax wants to talk. When we talked about moving open time to the end of the meeting, which I don't agree with, it was a nightmare because people want to talk and be heard and listen to one another in the beginning, and they want us to listen when we're fresh. So, but everybody has one topic that's most important to them, and it is the most important topic, and it has to come somewhere on the agenda. I would be willing to talk about the idea of 2 meetings, but just for the information for the group here, we do average 2 meetings a month. And those meetings are times when we dig in and we workshop on things. And with some of the issues in front of us, we'll be having a lot of workshops. So I would like to consider and think about and find out the history on what's happened in the past with, has it been explored? I'm not sure.
Thank you. Stephanie.
Yes, so I've been advocating 2 meetings per month because quite honestly, I don't want to be here past midnight. I don't think good business decisions are made past 11 o'clock. And I don't think that decisions should be made that late in the absence of the public when they've all gone home and gone to bed. So I don't think it's the right thing to do. The rest of Marin County has 2 meetings per month. So I wanted to share that with you and make sure you knew that. So I would agree with Renee that people want to be heard. They absolutely want to be heard. And so they should be heard. If I'm elected, I'm going to have weekly open door sessions for 2 hours a week so they can be heard. I think there needs to be more opportunity for people to be heard. People want connection. People need to be heard. So perhaps that will help. My dad used to say, never miss an opportunity to say nothing. And the point is, is that you really only need to speak if you have something valuable to say. And I think if we could work with people in a constructive way and deliver feedback that you really don't need to say anything unless it's really contributing value to the discussion, that would be helpful. Like I said earlier in the discussion, I think we can cut some of the fat out of these discussions and drive more efficiency. I see opportunity there, and that's where some of my business acumen can come in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There have been so many great questions, so if we didn't read yours, it was just because we were overwhelmed with questions. Our final question, Renee's going to be the first one to answer, is, because we all know it takes a village, what do you think you should do, that you should all do as residents to improve Fairfax?
Turn to your neighbor and say hello and who you are. Like, quick, I only have a minute and a half. No, seriously, this community, every single person in this community moved here because they knew something of what this place, Fairfax, was. The people who bought their houses here ages ago and had the good fortune of being able to afford them. The people here who are working 2, 3 jobs, 2 parents, going out and working jobs, driving to, gosh, even Silicon Valley in order to live here. The new are just as valuable as the old. And I think what we're going to do is continue to divide until we embrace each other, old and new, senior and youth, and we figure out a way that we're going to get along. I would say it's the #1 thing that is on each of us to do, is to figure out where it is that your conflict lies. Okay, I'll talk to myself. Sorry, that's preachy. And figure out how you're going to move through it, how I'm going to move through it. And I know we can be a better place, and I know it's in each of our capacity to do that. And I know that each person cares enough about Fairfax to do that. So that's my request, and it's something that I know will make Fairfax better.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Yeah, absolutely. Spending time in the community the community engagement element of this campaign has been honestly moving for me. I've loved every minute of it. When somebody invites me into their home and we talk on their couch for 20 minutes, it honestly makes my day. I love it. I love hearing their stories about living here in the 70s and 80s, and they just tell me everything they know. And the ideas that come forth, the solutions are in the community. We don't need to hire consultants all the time. The solutions are here. There's beautiful, brilliant people here in our community. The Artist Walk last Friday was phenomenal. I think that one might be tied with Fairfax Festival now. It was so amazing. I loved that event. And just walking around, enjoying the art, talking to your friends and neighbors was so wonderful. So yeah, I would agree with Renee on that. It was beautiful, just connecting with neighbors and friends. And we agree on this. We share a beautiful community. There's a commonality in why we live here, what we love about it. So we are in agreement on that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Cindy?
I think it's remembering small town values. I mean, you can go to the variety store and there's, signs in there. Fairfax is Mayberry on acid, but it's really the Mayberry part of that that's important. When I walk down the street, I say hi to people that pass me. Not everybody does that. We need to do things like that. I walk my dog in the morning and I wave at all the people driving off to work. They probably think I'm a little bit nuts, but a lot of them will give me a wave back. And it's also, saying hi to your neighbors and connecting with the neighbors on your road and doing those small town things. I agree with Stephanie on the art walk. It's just a great event. I remember the first one we had, and my husband, I was down there walking and participating in it, and my husband was driving through on his way home, and when I got home, he told me that his perception of that when he drove through was everybody had a smile on their face, and everybody was talking to everybody else, and that was fantastic, and I think we just have to remember kind of those small town values and practice them. Thank you.
Great. Okay, that concludes the question portion of this forum. So before the candidates make their closing statements, here's some useful information about the election. Election day is Tuesday, November 5th. If you wish to register to vote, or if you've moved since the last time you voted and you need to re-register, you can register online up until October 21st. Registration forms mailed to the County Elections Department must be postmarked no later than October 21st. And vote-by-mail requests have to be received no later than October 29th. And if you go to, I don't know if you are familiar with the Leagues of Women Voters Voters Edge website. It's votersedge.org/CA. It's a really helpful website. It's votersedge.org/CA. So to see your own ballot, you can enter your street address and zip code. You can also see the entire county by clicking on Look Up Ballots by County and enter Marin. And you'll see links to the candidates, to the issues, to the ballot measures, and information about the voting process itself. It's a terrific tool in helping you make sure you have your voting plan in place for this election. And one thing I will say, if you look up a candidate and they don't have their information there, email them and tell them you want them to add it. Just saying. And and now the candidates will make closing statements of 2 minutes each, and we're going to go in reverse order of the opening statements. So we're going to start with Cindy Swift.
So thank you. I believe my over 40 years of service in the community, from that first Fairfax Festival parade to the current work I do on the Planning Commission, as well as the other boards and commissions and the county-wide boards that I've been on, as well as my career as an IT program manager for the Corps, have given me the knowledge of my community and the skills necessary to work collaboratively, manage budgets, and be successful in community engagement. I have a broad range of support, including endorsements from elected officials such as Supervisor Rice, Mayor Kohler, Councilmember Lax, members of our Fairfax Open Space Committee, Volunteer Board, and Tree Committee, Rich Shortall, president of Fire Safe Marin, Mike Swayze, retired Watershed Resources Manager for MMWD, Todd Lando, Linda Novi, Andy Perry, Rose Tabor, and other community members, as well as endorsements from the North Bay Labor Council, the Marin IJ, Marin Democrats, Marin Women's Political Action Committee, and our Fairfax Police Officers Association. And I will be an independent, responsible, and responsive council member, and I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Renee?
So when I was considering this, what?
It should have been Stephanie, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so why do I do this? That's the question I've been asking, and it's been a sobering month or so of getting real with myself. And I do this because I love this town. And I want to just tell a story. And the story is that each city gets to host something called the Mayors and Council Members of Marin County thing. And we once a month have a business meeting and a dinner. And the mayor at the time gets to pick the speaker. And so I had the pleasure, because Barbara was absent, so sorry, to invite 4 young people from high schools who are in their eco-action clubs who are working hard on the Green New Deal. And I had them sit before a room filled with elected officials. They had been going from council to council and from district agency to district agency. And I got them in front of that whole group, and they got to ask and they got to be heard. And I believe that there will be elected officials in this county that are actually going to pass a resolution to support their request that this county support the Green New Deal. It's about anything that we do up here. We have a chance to be engaged and connected, or we have a chance to just basically sit and read staff reports and then come to meetings. I have been honored, and it's been my greatest pleasure to be connected. I think people see me as a connector. I'd like to continue. I think I'm getting better at it. As Stephanie said, the learning curve is insanely steep, but I think I finally know what I'm doing, and I know you, and I know you even when we disagree, and I think that we can be better, and I would like to continue to lead. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Thank you all for coming tonight. I decided to run because I care deeply about Fairfax. I see an opportunity to effectively use my voice and my skills to influence a positive change and bring a fresh perspective to the town council. Over the past 6 weeks, I've genuinely loved the experience of knocking on doors and connecting with the community. If elected, as I mentioned, I plan to have 2 open-door public sessions to hear from you directly, and I know I will enjoy these. I enjoy connecting with people and creating solutions together. I have an open mind, and I really want to bring harmony back to our small town council and the community. It would be my honor to serve. I hope you've gleaned from my performance tonight that I will be your advocate. I have hundreds of endorsements you can find on my website, including Ryan O'Neill, Patricia Aragoni, Millie Millar, Nicolo Caldaro, Frank Egger, and as I said, hundreds more. Thank you for being tonight. I hope you vote for me. Thank you so much.
Okay, that concludes our forum. I want to thank Community Media Center of Marin for broadcasting and live streaming this event. They are a gem here. I have just a few things I have to say. Thank you. It'll be rebroadcast on Channel 30, and it will be posted on YouTube. And the YouTube link will be available. So if you have friends who couldn't make it tonight, they can see it on Channel 30, or it will be on our website at marinlwv.org. Thank you to the town of Fairfax for making this space available. Thank you to all of our candidates for participating, to Annie Laser for timekeeping, and Nancy Bell for sorting 1,000 questions, and to you for joining us tonight, and most importantly, for voting. Thanks so much.